Hey guys, tonight we explore forgotten sands under moonlit skies deep in the Persian desert. Imagine yourself trudging softly across cool sand, grains sliding gently underfoot, the night air crisp yet somehow still heavy with the echoes of ancient mysteries. Ruins rise ahead, half-buried walls and arches peeking out, their shadows dancing under a pale crescent moon. You're about to journey through the hidden secrets of a palace, constructed not by any ordinary ruler, but by Persia's enigmatic warrior princess herself. Though, fair warning, you probably won't survive the avalanche of sleepy details. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, why not let me know down in the comments where in the world you're tuning in from and what time it is right now. I always love seeing how far our community of night owls reaches. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You first glimpse the ruins like a vague dream, barely outlined by silver moonlight. Half-hidden walls jut unevenly from the desert floor, their stones polished smooth by centuries of relentless wind. As you approach, your fingers trail over cool sandstone blocks, rough yet comforting. Time has worn these surfaces into gentle curves and edges that speak softly of age-old tales waiting patiently to be heard again. Crouching, you carefully brush sand away from a particularly intriguing stone, revealing intricate carvings beneath. The symbols ripple outwards, twisting, curling patterns like whispers captured in rock. One glyph, shaped suspiciously like a feline silhouette, winks up at you as though daring you to unravel its meaning. Nearby, the outline of what might be a crown mingles subtly with waves and stars, imagery hinting at royalty that had something peculiar, something different about its reign. These symbols whisper about a forgotten ruler, no mere king or ordinary queen, but a princess who wielded blades as gracefully as silk fans. Stories of powerful women in ancient Persia are often lost to time, but not this princess. Her palace, so deliberately hidden, suggests someone who stood apart, perhaps even someone who wasn't entirely welcome in the conventional halls of power. But who was she exactly? As you move deeper into the ruins, you notice peculiar scorch marks on one wall, evidence of ancient battles, or perhaps dramatic gestures of defiance. There's even something cheekily rebellious in how these stones defy complete burial, persistently rising back above the sand no matter how many times nature attempts to reclaim them. You wonder briefly whether those who dared defy her found themselves meeting an ironic fate, perhaps ending up polishing these very stones she commissioned. Historians still debate if the princess was a hero, a rebel, or something deliciously ambiguous in between. Maybe she was simply a misunderstood figure who preferred solitude, much like you do when you're attempting to nap away an overly complicated day. But tonight, questions about her nature don't need definitive answers. Instead, they hover gently around you, floating softly through your imagination, blending seamlessly with the whispering wind. You pause, looking up at the moon glowing serenely above, listening as silence itself weaves around the lost palace ruins, coaxing you deeper into Persia's hidden sands. You continue brushing aside layers of sand with slow, rhythmic sweeps, each grain whispering secrets as it tumbles quietly away. The moon rises higher, bathing the ruins in pale, silvery light, highlighting something intriguing near your fingertips. Leaning closer, you notice detailed carvings emerging from beneath centuries of dust. These engravings depict graceful yet powerful figures, their expressions fierce, their poses dynamic, suggesting stories filled with conflict and courage. Your fingers trace one carving, a delicate yet formidable woman astride a rearing horse, her flowing robes and detailed armor etched perfectly into stone. Historians still argue whether such portrayals captured reality or merely embellished tales meant to impress and intimidate. But tonight, in the moonlight, realism matters less than the beauty and mystery of these ancient depictions. You smile to yourself. After all, everyone deserves a flattering portrait, especially a warrior princess. As you explore further, more images appear beneath your fingertips. Animals, constellations, and symbols of power. Birds of prey soar alongside celestial bodies, intricate knots intertwine with elaborate Persian script. One symbol, intriguingly familiar yet wholly indecipherable, repeats frequently, a twisting spiral surrounding what looks vaguely like an eye. You wonder whether this represented protection, surveillance, or something far stranger, perhaps the ancient equivalent of a mystical CCTV camera keeping an eternal watch. Pulling yourself away from this mystery, you uncover something else. Faint outlines of human footprints preserved in hardened earth beneath the sand. The marks are small and delicate, leading deeper into the structure. It's a curious thought. These steps taken thousands of years ago might have belonged to the princess herself, or perhaps to servants who carried secrets of their own, quietly padding through corridors at night, careful not to disturb their enigmatic mistress. The more you brush away the layers of time, the clearer the palace's ambitious scale becomes. This wasn't some modest retreat, but a grand architectural feat hidden intentionally far from prying eyes. Ancient Persian palaces were famously ornate and symbolic, often displaying power openly. Yet this palace seems to have been deliberately obscured, as if someone wished to hide its very existence. A sudden gust of wind sweeps gently through the ruins, sending sand swirling in playful patterns around your feet. It feels almost as if the desert itself is guiding you, playfully nudging you toward deeper secrets. Maybe tonight the desert spirits have decided you're worthy enough, or sleepy enough, to hear a few carefully guarded tales. Pausing to stretch your tired back, you reflect briefly on how strange it is that you're spending your evening unearthing a forgotten palace while most sensible people are fast asleep. Then again, whoever said sensible people have the most fun? You brush another bit of sand away, half expecting to find instructions for where to take the palace tour. Or perhaps an ancient Persian Yelp review praising the gardens but complaining mildly about the lack of Wi-Fi. A smile tugs at your lips. Sometimes history is less about finding answers and more about enjoying the questions. As your eyelids grow heavier, your mind wanders freely through imagined scenes of the warrior princess supervising construction, riding her horse through moonlit sands, or arguing with stubborn architects insisting on adding more decorative lions. You exhale softly, letting your thoughts blend into the gentle breeze that whispers through these silent ruins, gently coaxing you deeper into tranquility. You move slowly along the weathered stone walls, your fingertips gliding over ancient inscriptions that seem to hum softly beneath your touch. Or maybe that's just your imagination starting to drift gently into dreaminess. The desert night wraps around you comfortably, stars blinking sleepily overhead like distant lanterns lighting your way through this palace's mysterious past. From a sandy crevice, you carefully pull free an old scroll, its delicate parchment rustling like dry leaves in autumn. It's almost comedic, like the palace itself decided you needed some bedtime reading. As you unroll it carefully, faded ink emerges, revealing rows of elegant Persian script. These ancient scribbles promise stories of heroism and defiance, intrigue, and, likely, royal tantrums. After all, what's royalty without the occasional dramatic outburst? Squinting in the moonlight, you begin translating snippets from the delicate parchment. They whisper about a princess named Azarmare, whose name, roughly translated, suggests fire of kindness. You wonder briefly if that's a poetic euphemism for her fiery temper when the servants misplaced her favorite dagger or when someone dared to comment negatively on her sandals. But historical texts hint at much more than just humorous royal quirks. This princess wasn't simply a pampered noble. She was a skilled warrior who preferred leading cavalry charges to attending tedious court dinners. Azarmare challenged the very fabric of Persian tradition, defying expectations of her gender and rank, wielding swords as confidently as she wore silks and jewels. One story stands out vividly. It speaks of her leading an army against invading tribes at Persia's eastern borders. Legends say she personally captured a notorious enemy general. Historians still argue whether she defeated him through cunning strategy or a particularly devastating glare. Either way, he didn't stand a chance. As the scroll gently trembles in your hands, a breeze shifts the sand slightly, revealing a delicate fragment of pottery nearby. Carefully picking it up, you notice painted figures, men and women dancing beneath crescent moons and twinkling stars. Clearly, even legendary warrior princesses needed a little downtime. Perhaps this palace had served not only as a fortress, but as a sanctuary where the fierce princess could shed her armor, relax, and perhaps indulge in the ancient Persian equivalent of binge-watching her favorite dramas. You chuckle softly at the thought, brushing sand from another faded scroll. This one speaks of a curious event, a secret gathering where Azarmare summoned scholars, warriors, and philosophers under the cover of darkness. It's unclear what precisely transpired during these nocturnal assemblies, though descriptions include starlit rituals, whispered oaths, and perhaps just a hint of gossip about palace intrigue. But then again, what royal court could truly exist without some hushed whispers in shadowy corners? The text intriguingly notes that attendees never spoke openly about what they witnessed, adding an irresistible layer of mystery. Maybe they took solemn vows of secrecy, or maybe they simply forgot what was said after too many goblets of strong Persian wine. Historians, predictably, still argue about the nature of these gatherings. Were they strategic councils, mystical rituals, or simply exclusive late-night dinner parties reserved only for the coolest Persian kids? Your eyelids grow heavier, and the scroll starts feeling lighter in your hands, as though even history itself is trying to lull you gently into restfulness. The whispers of Azarmare and her palace wrap around you, softer than silk, as you lean back against a smooth stone pillar, breathing slowly, letting yourself sink a bit deeper into the dreamy history of this forgotten Persian warrior princess. Your fingers trail lazily over worn carvings as the moon continues its gentle journey across the velvet night sky. Slowly, the lines of ancient battles etched into the stonework seem to come alive, blending with the quiet whispers of the desert. Tonight, you don't merely read history, you slip softly into it, a visitor welcomed by shadows and starlight. Azarmare's image emerges again, clear yet mysterious. A leader riding fearlessly at the forefront of her warriors, eyes blazing fiercely beneath her helmet. Yet, behind the grandeur, you find subtle clues of the personal sacrifices she endured. Leading troops into battle was rare enough for a woman of her time, but enduring the constant skepticism of generals and nobles around her would have tested anyone's patience. You imagine her biting her tongue patiently through yet another tiresome council meeting. Because, honestly, even ancient warrior princesses had to deal with endless meetings. Your fingers brush against deeper grooves in the stone, revealing depictions of Azarmare's most celebrated military campaign, a decisive victory at the Battle of the Silver Plains. According to the inscriptions, the princess employed daring tactics, luring her enemies into an ambush by pretending to retreat. You smile softly, picturing Azarmare rolling her eyes at commanders who doubted her bold plan, confidently reassuring them with a nod, and probably muttering under her breath something like, "Just trust me already." Historians still argue whether her success stemmed purely from tactical genius or an uncanny ability to inspire loyalty among her troops. Either way, the outcome became legendary. The invaders scattered, Persia's eastern borders secured, and the princess celebrated throughout the kingdom. Although, knowing royal politics, some were probably celebrating through gritted teeth. Yet, despite her martial triumphs, you sense a melancholy lingering within the carvings. Could Azarmare have felt isolated within her victories? Perhaps the pressures of constantly defying convention grew exhausting. Even warriors grow weary after all. And at some point, every legendary figure might secretly wish for quieter battles, like wrestling stubbornly tangled embroidery threads rather than enemy armies. A small, curious engraving catches your eye. It's Azarmare seated beneath a flowering tree, her expression soft and reflective. In this quiet moment, away from the battlefield, you glimpse another side of her, gentle, contemplative, maybe wishing briefly for simpler times. After all, no one spends every waking moment thinking about strategy and politics. Even warrior princesses daydream, probably about sneaking away from royal duties to lounge in palace gardens, sipping tea and pretending the rest of the world doesn't exist. The desert air feels cooler now, caressing your face, inviting you deeper into contemplation. Around you, the quiet ruins seem to sigh in agreement. History isn't merely battles won and lost. It's also small moments. Moments spent alone beneath moonlit skies, moments of quiet laughter shared between friends, and moments when even legendary figures wonder if their sandals match their battle armor. Your breathing slows as you lean gently against the ancient stone wall, the carvings blending gradually into your dreams. Each breath draws you deeper into restful tranquility, where Azarmare's stories dance softly around you, blurring the lines between imagination and reality, until everything feels timeless and perfectly, wonderfully sleepy. You shift slightly against the cool stone, your fingertips idly tracing faint patterns left by time. Gradually, your thoughts drift to the monumental task the princess faced in constructing her secret palace. Hidden deep within Persia's vast deserts, it wasn't exactly the kind of project you could casually discuss at royal dinner parties. Building it openly would risk political turmoil. Building it secretly posed entirely different problems, like smuggling in tons of stone and marble without anyone noticing. Imagine explaining that to suspicious palace guards. "Oh, this massive shipment of fine marble? Just redecorating the bathroom. Nothing to see here." Historians still argue whether Azumer commissioned her palace as a direct challenge to traditional Persian authority or simply as a private refuge from court intrigues. But clearly, secrecy mattered deeply to her. Maybe she grew tired of constant scrutiny, finding peace only in quiet isolation far away from nosy nobles asking awkward questions like, "Where exactly are you taking all those skilled laborers?" The inscriptions offer tantalizing clues about her method. Workers were recruited carefully with strict instructions. They couldn't speak about the project, not even to family. Payment was generous, loyalty fiercely demanded. A gentle breeze whispers through the ruins, and you wonder briefly if some of those ancient workers still linger here in spirit, waiting for permission to clock out from the longest shift in history. As you gently push sand aside near the base of a pillar, your fingers brush something cool and metallic. You carefully lift it free. A small copper coin embossed with intricate symbols of stars and lions. Such coins were sometimes used to discreetly pay workers or reward silence. Perhaps a worker dropped this, distracted by daydreams of what they'd buy, maybe a new tunic, or even Persian kebabs from the market stall. After all, nothing motivates secrecy quite like dreams of good food. The details around this vast operation continue to intrigue you. Construction happened under the cover of night. Materials transported secretly along hidden desert routes. Imagine those midnight caravans, moving silently across moonlit dunes, workers whispering nervously about palace ghosts or sandstorms. Or perhaps, after weeks of desert silence, they'd chat excitedly about their plans for when the job ended. A bath would probably top the list, closely followed by a strong cup of Persian tea. One curious inscription details strict guidelines imposed by Azumer herself. She personally supervised the design, demanding the palace be both defensible and beautiful. Walls had to withstand attack, but also delight the eye. Fountains needed to provide water for survival, but also soothe with their quiet whispers. Clearly, she had a taste for the poetic. You imagine her pacing thoughtfully around dusty blueprints, making helpful design suggestions, while architects tried not to groan audibly, quietly muttering under their breaths, "Sure, princess. Let's just move the massive marble fountain 10 inches to the left." You can't help but admire her resolve. The complexities of building this hidden palace probably drove a few engineers quietly insane. Every secret corridor or concealed garden required meticulous planning, precise measurements, and perhaps a few whispered curses. Yet, somehow the princess made it happen, blending secrecy, beauty, and practicality into something enduringly magical. As you recline deeper into the shadows of the ruins, your mind drifts gently, lulled by the endless rhythm of the desert wind. Thoughts of ancient construction, whispered secrets, and gently exasperated architects softly fade, leaving only a comforting hum of historical mysteries to guide you ever closer to restful dreams. You close your eyes briefly, breathing in deeply the cool desert air, feeling it ease gently through your chest, lifting the tiredness from your bones. When your eyes flutter open again, the moonlit ruins seem softer somehow, more inviting, whispering subtle promises of hidden gardens and secret pools deep within. Carefully rising, you wander deeper, following subtle hints carved into the stone, a faint trail of flowers and vines that curls and twists along walls, guiding you gently, like ancient Persian GPS. Your fingertips brush over these delicate carvings, and suddenly you notice the faintest scent lingering in the air, something floral, fresh, impossibly gentle amidst the desert dryness. You wonder if you're imagining it, or if maybe ancient Persian air fresheners were impressively long-lasting. The carvings lead you toward an area partially shielded by a crumbling archway. Carefully stepping through, you're greeted by a surprisingly lush image, etched vividly into the sandstone. Gardens filled with towering palms, fragrant jasmine, and reflecting pools shimmering under starlight. Such elaborate garden spaces were beloved by Persian royalty, symbolizing paradise on earth. And Azarmare, despite being known as a fierce warrior princess, evidently had a soft spot for serene retreats, proving even the toughest fighters secretly enjoy floral aesthetics. Historians still argue whether these lush garden designs were purely ornamental or held deeper symbolic meanings tied to Persian spirituality and the eternal quest for harmony. Either way, Azarmare clearly invested considerable effort into cultivating this secluded haven. You imagine her standing amidst blooming flowers at dawn, secretly admiring the beauty, perhaps murmuring softly to herself, "Finally, something in this palace that doesn't involve swords." A few steps further, you spot shallow indentations marking a spot once occupied by pools, now long dried by desert sands. Yet, despite their emptiness, these pools whisper stories of quiet relaxation, starlit swims, and possibly even luxurious Persian spa nights featuring the ancient equivalent of cucumber slices and scented candles. You chuckle softly, picturing Azarmare gracefully stepping into a cool pool after a long day, surrounded by servants, whispering polite compliments about how incredibly fierce she looked in armor, even if privately they worried she'd rust it by bathing too often. Gently crouching down, you run your fingers over the smooth basin, noticing tiny grooves along the edges, designed ingeniously to capture and channel rainwater. Persian architects famously mastered water conservation, crucial for maintaining gardens in desert conditions. You can't help but marvel at the ingenious practicality hidden within such beauty. Your eyes wander upward, spotting more carvings on pillars that encircle what must have been the garden's center. Images of celestial bodies, moons, suns, and stars repeat frequently, hinting at deeper meanings tied perhaps to cosmic alignment, or simply Azarmare's love for nighttime strolls. Maybe the princess herself once stood precisely here, gazing upward at the very stars you now see. Though perhaps she wasn't pondering cosmic mysteries, maybe she was just wishing someone would invent coffee centuries earlier. The breeze drifts through again, carrying with it subtle hints of jasmine once more, probably your imagination, but wonderfully calming nonetheless. Slowly, gently, the soft whispers of garden pools, blooming flowers, and starlit skies weave together, guiding you ever deeper into peacefulness. The ancient serenity of this forgotten paradise cradles you softly, coaxing your eyes closed again, encouraging your breathing to slow and promising that tonight, your dreams will blossom gently like a Persian garden beneath endless desert stars. Your footsteps grow quieter as you step away from the imagined scent of jasmine and into a darker corridor flanked by stone columns. Here, the air changes, cooler, drier, touched by something ancient and faintly strange. The further you walk, the more it feels like the palace is inhaling around you, as though the structure itself is alive and deeply, deeply asleep. The hallway narrows and suddenly opens into a chamber unlike anything you've seen. Shadows dance across its walls where rows of statues line the room, each carved from glistening black stone, their faces tilted slightly downward as if deep in thought or deep in judgment. These aren't your ordinary decorative palace figures. They're too lifelike, too focused. Your sandals whisper across the dust-covered floor, and the quiet in this chamber is so complete, you begin to hear things. The soft whistle of air over stone, the occasional creak that might be the palace settling, or might be something else. They say the Chamber of Whispering Statues got its name because the figures here talk, not with mouths, of course, but with a kind of presence that presses softly against your thoughts. Some historians claim it was simply clever acoustics designed to amplify whispers. Others suggest it was an early attempt at psychological warfare. Imagine trying to sleep while the statues in your hallway keep mumbling existential questions. You pause before one statue in particular. It's shorter than the rest, its carved robes flowing like melted ink, and its face is not entirely human. The features blur somewhere between animal and spirit, giving it an aura of mischief or warning. You can't quite tell. Maybe both. There's an inscription at its base, too worn to read completely, but a few words survive. Asterisk. Speak softly. Dream clearer. Asterisk. You raise an eyebrow. That sounds suspiciously like something embroidered on a pillow in a particularly unnerving guest room. Azarmare, it seems, wasn't just a warrior and builder, but a curator of mystery. Perhaps she understood the power of unease, of symbolism, of making enemies second-guess their decisions before even drawing a blade. Or maybe, late at night, she liked to wander in here herself, speaking her thoughts aloud just to hear the echoes talk back. One fringe theory, offered by a particularly dramatic historian, claims that these statues were part of a listening system, not magical, but architectural, designed to transmit whispers from one end of the palace to another through a network of tunnels. Conspiracy or genius? Historians still argue about that one. You lean your ear slightly toward a statue just in case, half expecting to hear a grocery list or ancient gossip. Asterisk. Prince Darius still hasn't returned the princess's horsebrush. Asterisk. Instead, there's only silence. Still, you can't shake the feeling that the room remembers things. Maybe it remembers secrets spoken centuries ago. Maybe it remembers Azamir's voice, echoing softly through the stone, delivering commands, poetry, or quiet reflections meant only for these silent watchers. You walk slowly past the statues, offering them a small, respectful nod, just in case. They don't answer, but the air grows just a touch warmer, as though the palace acknowledges your presence and appreciates your quietude. You exit the chamber slowly, and as the whispering fades, so too does your waking mind. That heavy, wonderful pull of sleep begins to settle in your limbs, as if each statue took a tiny part of your alertness and tucked it away for safekeeping. The stars beyond the doorway blink patiently, waiting for you to join their gentle rhythm. And the palace? It continues to dream, just as you begin to. The hallway beyond the whispering statues bends slightly to the left, its curve smooth and deliberate, like it was carved by the flow of water, or thought. Your fingers graze the cool walls as you walk, tracing faint patterns etched centuries ago. Interlocking spirals, overlapping crescents, and a curious motif that looks suspiciously like a cat wearing a crown. You squint at it. Ancient Persian humor? Or perhaps Azamir had a favorite pet who insisted on sitting in her throne when she wasn't looking. Either way, you approve. The corridor ends in a heavy wooden door, reinforced with bands of oxidized bronze, the edges softened by time. You push it gently, half expecting resistance, but it swings open silently, as if it's been waiting for you. Inside, the air changes again, warmer, denser, and laced with the faintest trace of burnt parchment and honey. You've found the princess's personal library, books, scrolls, tablets. Piles of them stacked haphazardly in carved niches, laid flat on stone slabs, or bundled in faded silk. It's the sort of beautiful chaos that speaks to a restless, brilliant mind, one that couldn't quite decide whether to read about astrology, poetry, or siege tactics, so settled for asterisk all three. Historians still argue about the nature of this library. Some claim it was a secret archive of forbidden texts, tomes banned by the court for their heretical philosophies, foreign languages, or downright scandalous recipes. Others believe Azamir collected knowledge simply because she adored it, regardless of politics. One scroll allegedly contains detailed instructions for distilling flower oil, annotated in the margins with complaints about how rose petals stain battle gear. Relatable. You pick up a half-burned parchment, the ink still surprisingly legible. It's a poem. Beautiful, lyrical, strangely mournful. It speaks of waiting, not for a lover, but for peace. For the kind of quiet that doesn't come with strings attached. The kind that allows someone to remove their armor without keeping a dagger under the pillow. You sit on a low stone bench as your eyes drift across the shelves. It becomes clear this wasn't just a library. This was sanctuary. A place where strategy maps shared space with herbal remedies, where military dispatches sat beside dream journals. It's here, in this silent chamber, that the warrior princess allowed herself to become more than just her title. In a far corner, tucked beneath a cracked skylight that now reveals only stars, you find a tablet marked with the seal of an ancient foreign empire. It appears to be a letter, possibly a gift. A message from someone outside Persia, maybe a king, maybe a friend, maybe something more. Historians still argue whether Azamir ever had lovers, confidants, or secret alliances beyond the empire's reach. The truth, like much of her story, remains just out of reach, wrapped in layers of silk, ink, and deliberate silence. You lean back against a stack of scrolls that smell faintly of sandalwood and old ambition. This place is alive in a way that's difficult to explain. The rustle of paper, the creak of the ceiling above, the distant memory of someone pacing, scribbling, muttering lines of poetry between sword drills. Your breathing slows, your limbs grow heavier. Surrounded by the quiet intellect of a long-forgotten queen, you feel an unexpected calm, the kind that comes only when surrounded by stories, by knowledge, by the gentle certainty that you are safe, unobserved, and welcome to rest. The last candle stub in your mind flickers, then softens. Azamir's words fade into the walls. The room sighs. And you drift, slowly, into pages you'll never finish, but that will hold you all night just the same. A soft creak accompanies your rising from the bench, as if the stone itself sighs in protest, asking you to stay just a moment longer. But curiosity calls. You move deeper into the palace's forgotten bones, down a corridor lit only by moonlight spilling through cracks in the ceiling. The walls here are plainer, less ornate, more functional, but worn grooves beneath your feet suggest this path was well-traveled. You're heading toward the heart of daily life, where even a warrior princess had routines, habits, and, if rumors are to be believed, a taste for pistachio honeycakes. The floor opens into a broad chamber with low divans and faded mosaics underfoot. Here, you can almost hear footsteps long since silenced, soft laughter, the hush of fabric, the clink of clay dishes. Azamir's personal quarters weren't gilded or ostentatious. They were comfortable, lived in. A rare combination of royal dignity and human practicality. In one corner sits a rack of wooden training swords, their handles worn smooth. Nearby, a delicate bronze mirror leans against the wall, cracked but still catching the moonlight in playful flickers. It's an odd pairing, beauty and battle, yet so very her. Historians still debate how Azamir balanced her public role as a military icon with her private life. Did she ever let her guard down? Did she have moments of doubt? Did she ever just sleep in? A shelf holds assorted personal items, a worn sandal, a comb with a missing tooth, and a dried-out inkpot with faded brushstrokes still clinging to its rim. Notes lie scattered across a low writing table, many of them short, to the point, inspect training grounds. Change guards before dusk. Remind cook, less pepper, but tucked among them are a few quiet curiosities. A note simply reading, remember to look at the moon tonight. And another one, trust doesn't grow in silence, but in listening. You pause. These tiny fragments of routine are somehow more revealing than grand monuments. They remind you that this princess, praised for strength and strategy, also had quiet evenings, small frustrations and gentle reminders to herself to feel something beyond discipline. Maybe she wasn't always sure what she was building out here. Maybe some days she doubted it all. But she kept showing up, placing stone after stone, choosing solitude over comfort, integrity over applause. A detail catches your eye, etched into the wall by her sleeping platform, now worn nearly invisible, the outline of a lion, curled and sleeping, not posed in majestic growl, but resting peacefully, a symbol of strength at ease. You wonder, was this how she saw herself when no one else was watching? Quirky stories from lesser-known chronicles say she had breakfast at sunrise, always facing east. Not because of religion or ritual, but because she liked to watch the dunes catch fire with the dawn. Supposedly she talked to herself during these mornings, sometimes rehearsing speeches, sometimes muttering about palace repairs, and occasionally scolding the wind for knocking over flower pots. Because even fierce warrior queens have flower pots. You smile, letting your hand rest on the divan. The cushion sighs beneath your touch, old but forgiving. You could stay here, just for a bit. Let the ordinary details of her extraordinary life wrap around you like a warm shawl. You breathe slower. The rustle of old notes, the weight of unread poetry, the soft ghost of footsteps in the corridor. All blend into a hush so gentle, it feels almost sacred. And there, surrounded by traces of Azamir's daily life, the gap between your world and hers narrows. You blink slower, dream lighter. Her past, once shrouded, now drapes around your shoulders like soft linen. You're not just reading history, you're curled inside it. And it's very, very hard to stay awake. Somewhere deeper in the palace, wind slips through a narrow archway and hums softly like a lullaby through the stones. You follow it, your footsteps almost noiseless now, softened by the fine layer of ancient dust carpeting the floor. The air thickens slightly as you step through an ornate doorway carved with coiling vines and lion heads, symbolic protectors, no doubt. Beyond it lies the part of the palace few knew about. Fewer still dared to speak of. This is the guest wing, but not for dignitaries or visiting nobility. No. These chambers were meant for strangers of another kind. Mysterious ones. Visitors from foreign lands, known not by name but by their silks, spices, and the peculiar languages they whispered at dusk. One chamber is still surprisingly intact. Moonlight slants through a broken window lattice, casting the room in silver stripes. A table stands in the middle, still solid after centuries. Around it, 4 cushions remain in place, as though their occupants simply stepped out and never returned. On the table, carved in a circle, are symbols that seem to shift beneath your gaze. Eclipses, serpents, sailing ships, and something that looks vaguely like a teacup. You blink. Historians still argue whether this was a meeting space or something more ceremonial, ritualistic, or perhaps just where the princess held her more interesting conversations, the kind that required privacy and plausible deniability. The stories vary. Some say she welcomed exiled mystics. Others claim she received assassins, not to hire them, but to listen to their regrets. One particularly odd tale suggests she hosted a pirate queen from the southern coast, who gifted her a live parrot and a map to a sunken city. The parrot allegedly escaped, nested in the rafters, and terrified the kitchen staff for weeks by shouting, "More coriander!" You drift to a chest in the corner, its lid ajar. Inside are layers of embroidered cloth, still rich in color, deep indigo, burnt saffron, a red so dark it could be mistaken for black. Beneath them, you find clay tokens inscribed with unknown characters. Trade pieces, protection charms, entry passes. It's hard to say, but whatever they were, they clearly mattered to someone. Maybe these guests weren't just visitors. Maybe they were allies in something greater. A network of secret thinkers, spiritual rebels, or simply travelers who found in Azarmare a listener instead of a judge. The palace was more than stone and strategy. It was a sanctuary for the strange, a crossroads for the restless, a place where no question was too foolish, no story too wild. And at its center stood a woman with a blade on her hip and a poem in her sleeve, ready to offer both, depending on how you entered. You sit briefly on one of the guest cushions, the fabric crinkling softly beneath you, still faintly infused with a scent you can't name. Something foreign, something warm. You imagine conversations in this room, low voices, stifled laughter, ideas whispered like seeds into the dark. Some grew, some vanished, some lingered in the very walls, waiting. A breeze nudges the door behind you, closing it with a quiet click. You don't jump. The palace doesn't mean to scare you. It's just thoughtful like that. You stay a moment longer, wrapped in the silence that only truly ancient rooms can offer. Silence that isn't empty, but full. Full of secrets shared over candlelight, of hands clasped over strange maps, of eyes watching the horizon not with fear, but with a kind of stubborn hope. You lie back, letting the cushion cradle your head. The ceiling above is painted with stars, many long since faded, but a few still glimmer faintly under the moonlight. Your eyes trace them lazily as your breathing slows. Here, in this chamber meant for wanderers and misfits, you feel wholly, gently welcome. And it becomes very easy, very natural to let go, to let your thoughts loosen, to stop wondering where you are and simply feel safe. A guest among ghosts, lulled by stories written in dust and silence. A stranger the palace has decided to keep, just for a little while longer. You don't remember falling asleep, only the gentle sense of being watched over, by walls that remember and air that hums with stories. When your eyes flutter open again, just briefly, it's to the soft golden hint of dawn creeping in through a broken mosaic window, casting shimmering patterns across the stone floor like waves of forgotten starlight. The palace is quiet, quieter than before, as if it knows you need the stillness. Rising slowly, you stretch, bones softly cracking, sleep still tangled in your limbs. There's no urgency here, just curiosity, just the lingering pull of wonder. You follow the light through another corridor, passing faded frescoes of ships, storm clouds, and women draped in armor standing proudly beside lions. One particular image shows Azarmare not with a crown, but with an open scroll in one hand and a sword sheathed at her side. Not a conqueror, but a builder, a guardian of something unseen. You pass beneath an arch where vines have crept through the cracks, stubborn and soft, and enter a courtyard now mostly open to the sky. Here, remnants of what must have once been a grand reflecting pool shimmer with dew and moonlight residue. A stone bench sits at the edge, worn smooth by time and most likely by countless moments of quiet reflection. You sit. This was where Azarmir came to write, or think, or escape. Etched into the bench is a single line in faded flowing script. Asterisk. The sword keeps the gate, but the mind builds the home. You let the words settle into your chest, slow and heavy and calm. Historians debate whether she ever truly ruled, or if she remained outside the structures of court. Some call her a ghost queen. Others, a rebel who refused the throne, but never surrendered the crown she made for herself. No one agrees. That's what makes it beautiful. A soft gust of wind brushes your face, stirring dry leaves in a rhythmic swirl near your feet. You close your eyes and, in that moment, imagine her beside you, not dressed in armor, but in silence. Tired, perhaps, but proud, unyielding, and deeply, deeply human. This place, this palace, it wasn't about power. Not really. It was about control. About choosing solitude when others demanded performance. About creating a space where she could think without interruption, plan without eyes watching, breathe without judgment. A palace not for empire, but for peace. You lean back, letting the stone support you. You don't need pillows or blankets or titles. You have quiet. You have dust. You have the faint scent of dried lavender clinging to old stones and a low desert breeze curling like a cat around your ankles. And you have time. There's no hurry to leave, no expectation to move. The sun may rise higher, the sand may shift, but this palace has waited centuries for footsteps like yours. It will wait longer still, so you stay, not because you have to, but because, for once, you are exactly where you need to be, and somewhere, far off, maybe imagined. You think you hear a voice like silken thunder murmur. Asterisk. Sleep. Guest. You are home now. Asterisk. And you do. Your rest, though light, leaves a warmth in your chest, like you'd been dreaming inside someone else's memory. As you stir once more, the sky above the open courtyard has shifted from pale peach to soft gold, the kind of morning light that doesn't rush anything. It merely settles, patient and kind, stretching itself over ruined columns and scattered leaves like a silk robe shrugged loosely over old shoulders. You rise slowly from the bench, your joints protesting gently, as if even your body knows that this place isn't meant for haste. Your path forward curves past a series of crumbling archways, where half-collapsed walls give you peeks into forgotten rooms, some filled with shattered pottery, others empty but for birds nesting in high crevices. And one, just one, lined with smooth tiles arranged in spirals and stars. Here, in this private place, water once flowed across the floor in shallow channels, designed not for drinking or bathing, but for music. The trickle of water over these mosaics would have created a soft, continuous hum, like wind chimes buried under your feet. The Persians called it asterisk salsabil, a whispering fountain designed not to impress the eyes, but to quiet the mind. You kneel beside a dry channel, tracing its path with your fingertips, imagining the gentle lapping sound of water meandering from one room to another, a soft lull that would have followed Azarmir from chamber to chamber, like a pet or a prayer. You think about her walking barefoot across these stones at night, the water warm against her skin, the silence so complete that the smallest splash would feel like thunder. Historians have little to say about this feature. Most ignore it entirely. But perhaps that's the point. Not every part of her palace was meant to be remembered. Some things were only meant to be asterisks felt. As you stand and continue forward, the architecture subtly shifts. The ceilings rise, the walls grow wider. You're moving into a different kind of space now, not private, not sacred, but strategic. A place for decisions or declarations. Ahead lies the council hall. Its vaulted ceiling has partially collapsed, revealing a patch of blue sky where once there might have been painted constellations. The dais at the far end remains intact, a raised platform with a long stone seat, not quite a throne. There are no armrests, no ornaments. Just a simple seat, carved from a single block of polished obsidian. You step up toward it, half expecting a ghost to clear her throat behind you and say, "You're in my spot." Instead, the silence presses in gently. The seat is cold beneath your hand. Solid. Heavy. This wasn't where she ruled from. It was where she listened. Records suggest Azarmare held court at odd hours, often at night, often outdoors. She preferred the sound of crickets to the babble of sycophants. Her advisors were said to be scholars, engineers, herbalists, and the occasional traveling musician who overstayed their welcome. In short, her counsel was chaos, and entirely hers. There's a phrase etched into the wall just behind the platform, only visible when the sunlight catches it. Asterisk. Strength listens. Power interrupts. Asterisk. You lean back against the cool stone of the wall and let that settle. The longer you stand here, the more you realize this wasn't a hall of command. It was a room for arguments, for conversations, for ideas that might never bloom but still deserved air. And perhaps in this long silence, it still is. You close your eyes, listening not for ghosts or stories, but for the feeling that you're not alone. Not in the eerie way, but in the asterisk-woven Belen way, in the way that centuries wrap around you like a second skin and whisper. It mattered that she built this. It matters that you're here. And so you stay, not just to witness, but to remember how power can be quiet, how strength can wear soft sandals, how the world can bend when one person refuses to, and how history, when left alone too long, becomes something soft enough to sleep in. The air shifts once more as you leave the council hall, stepping through a narrow stone passage that dips slightly underground. The light grows dimmer, the ceiling lower, and for a moment you wonder if you've strayed into an unused corridor, forgotten by both time and the princess herself. But the floor is smooth beneath your feet, the curve of the walls too deliberate to be incidental. This was meant to be hidden. You emerge into a small antechamber lit only by a shaft of sunlight filtering through a tiny hole in the ceiling. The walls here are covered in faded murals, less formal, more personal. Instead of gods or heroes, they depict people dancing, feasting, even playing games with what looks suspiciously like ancient dice. In one corner, a mural shows a woman perched on a windowsill with her legs dangling, staring into the distance, her expression unreadable. Here, in this shadowed sanctuary, is a vision of Azarmare rarely spoken of. Not the warrior, not the leader, but the person who loved the moon. A slim staircase curls along the wall, carved with floral motifs and lines of verse. You climb slowly, your hand tracing each petal, each word. One line repeats more than once, like a mantra. Asterisk. She walked by moonlight when the world forgot her name. Asterisk. At the top of the stairs, you emerge into a circular observatory open to the sky. The walls curve upward like a shallow bowl, perfectly designed to cradle starlight. In the center is a single slab of smooth white marble, polished to a mirror-like sheen. Not a throne, not an altar, just a place to lie down, to look up, to breathe under the infinite. This is where she came, again and again, to watch the stars, to trace the curve of the moon with her finger, to remember how small her problems looked from far, far away. It said that Azarmare followed the lunar calendar, not just for ceremony, but for comfort. The moon's consistency soothed her. Its silence matched her own. She believed the phases mirrored her strength, waxing when she led, waning when she needed to disappear. Some fringe scholars have suggested she timed her decisions by moonlight, campaigns launched on full moons, retreats on crescents. Historians still argue whether that was superstition or strategy. You think maybe it was both. You step forward and lower yourself onto the marble slab, the stone cool beneath you. Overhead, the sky is pale blue now, dotted with the last remnants of stars. But you can imagine the moon there still, soft, luminous, always watching. This isn't a place for declarations. It's a place for asking, for wondering, for dreaming. You lie back and feel the slow pull of gravity, of time, of memory pressing you downward, but not unkindly, more like a weighted blanket made of clouds and moonlight. And suddenly you understand, Azarmir didn't build this place for herself. She built it for whoever came after, for whoever needed quiet, whoever needed to remember that strength isn't always loud, that peace can be chosen, that the moon will rise whether the world notices or not. You blink slowly, your breath evens, and for a long time you simply lie there, wrapped in sky, in stone, in story, a guest in the observatory of the forgotten, a welcome visitor in the softest part of history. And as your eyes finally close again, the last thing you feel is the cool brush of starlight across your face and the soundless murmur of a woman long gone, whispering, asterisk. Let the world wait. You rest now. Asterisk. The sun climbs slowly outside, but here in the quiet observatory, time stretches like silk. You stir, not to leave, but simply to follow the next thread of the palace's story. With one last glance at the pale sky overhead, you rise and make your way back down the spiral stairs, your hand grazing the same etched petals and poems carved long ago. At the bottom, the passageway forks. One side curves toward the inner sanctum of the palace, while the other, narrower, darker, descends into the earth. You hesitate. A breeze flows from the lower path, cool and oddly metallic. Naturally, you go toward it. You followed whispers and moonlight this far. What's a little mystery between old friends? As you descend, the temperature drops. The walls become damp in places. The air thickens. Torches once lined this hallway, their brackets now rusted and empty. You half expect the next gust of air to carry a riddle or a riddle's answer. Instead, it brings the faint smell of something sharp, like salt or old iron, or secrets kept too long. You reach a vaulted chamber dimly lit by shafts of light filtering through stone slits above. You're in the armory, but not any ordinary armory. This one hums. Not literally, of course, but in the way that deep places do when they've held purpose for too long. The weapons here, though dulled by time and corrosion, are elegant, carefully arranged, each one tagged with a symbol or a name. Some blades are wide and brutal, made for intimidation. Others are so thin, they seem almost decorative. But there's nothing decorative about a blade forged for a princess who led armies. Historians still debate whether Azarmir wielded a specific sword, a family heirloom perhaps, or one she forged herself. One theory suggests her armor was constructed of overlapping bronze feathers, designed not just for protection, but to shimmer in sunlight like the wings of a hawk. No record confirms this. No sketch remains, just whispers, and one poem that refers to her as Asterisk, the woman who wore thunder. Asterisk. You pass racks of shields painted in now faded sigils, many unrecognizable. Some bear moons, others lions. One or two display what appear to be abstract flames. Among them, you find the strangest item yet, a mask, not for ceremony or performance, but battle. Made of leather and polished copper, molded to the contours of a face that was never meant to be seen. It's too small for most men, but just right for someone like her. You hold it for a moment, feeling the cool metal kiss your palms. What did it feel like to wear this into battle? To step forward, faceless and feared? Did it embolden her, or was it a shield not just from arrows, but from recognition? From responsibility? From being a woman in a world not ready to be led by one? You set it down gently, and notice something near the base of the weapon racks, a carved emblem hidden just at eye level, a moon cradled within a flame. A symbol not found in any official record. Perhaps this was her true mark, one used only among those who knew her, a secret she wore in iron rather than gold. You stand silently in the middle of the armory, surrounded by the ghosts of protection and destruction. This wasn't a place for bloodlust. It was a place of preparation, of intention. Every weapon here was a word in the language she spoke fluently. Power used wisely, not recklessly. You feel it now, the weight of everything she carried. The pressure to be steel in a world that asked her to be silk. The cost of building a kingdom where no one expected a woman to lead, let alone endure. And in that hush, the chamber offers you a moment to stand not just in her shadow, but in her strength. You breathe it in. You let it settle. Then you leave slowly, without touching anything else, your steps quieter than before. You walk away not because the room has nothing left to show you, but because somehow you already know what comes next. And in your chest, something fierce and gentle flickers quietly to life. Back in the upper corridors, the palace seems to breathe with you, each step echoing with calm, each breath syncing with the quiet rhythm of stone, sand, and memory. The deeper you've gone, the softer the world above has grown. It's as if time outside the palace has slowed to a respectful crawl, unwilling to disturb the story unraveling around you. You return to a hall you hadn't noticed before, perhaps because it wasn't ready to be noticed. The entrance is modest. No carvings, no gilded archway, just a narrow doorway set between two undecorated pillars. And yet, as you step through, the air thickens again, not with dust or age, but with something weightier. Reverence. This is the throne room, only there is no throne. Just a dais, smooth and wide, and a slightly elevated platform at its center. Around the perimeter of the room, stone benches form a half-circle, all facing inward, as though the space was built for listening more than ruling. Here, Azumir redefined what authority could look like. Where others placed grandeur, she placed intention. Historians still argue about why no traditional throne was ever discovered. Some claim it was removed after her death. Others suggest she rejected it entirely. A few fringe accounts even claim she melted it down to forge a gate that never locked, symbolizing her unwillingness to rule through fear. Probably apocryphal, but a poetic notion, and Azumir seemed to appreciate her poetry with a dash of rebellion. In the center of the dais lies something unexpected. A large circular tile with a simple inscription. No signature. No flourish. Just a message. I listened. I chose. I built. I do not regret. Asterisk. The clarity of it sends a quiet ripple through your chest. All around you, the throne room remains untouched. Vines have crept in from high windows, painting lazy patterns down the walls. The wind, soft and steady, moves through the space without urgency. You sit on one of the stone benches, feeling the smoothness worn into it by centuries of waiting. You close your eyes. In your mind, you see her, Azumir, standing at the center of the room. Not elevated, not above, but level with everyone. Her voice steady, her eyes sharp. Perhaps she's not giving orders, but listening to grievances. Perhaps she's not passing judgment, but asking questions no one else had the nerve to pose. Not ruling with spectacle, but with stillness. And maybe, just maybe, that stillness did more to hold her kingdom together than 100 swords ever could. There's something profoundly restful in that. In the image of a leader who wasn't loud, who didn't need to be, who let the walls speak. Let the wind carry the message. Let presence do what performance never could. The sunlight shifts slightly, painting the floor in long, golden stripes. You watch them slowly slide across the chamber, time brushing the stone like fingers across sleeping skin. This room, this absence of a throne, tells you everything you need to know. That real power isn't declared, it's lived, quietly, steadily, without regret. You let your shoulders fall, your jaw unclench, your heartbeat slow. And for a moment, it feels as if the palace sighs with you. Not because the story is over, but because you finally understand the part of it that can't be written down, can't be carved or preserved, only felt, only dreamed, only carried softly into the quiet places we keep for ourselves. Like this one, like now. The silence that follows is not empty. It's full. Full of understanding. Full of her. You stay seated in the throneless room for a while longer, letting that soft weight settle in your bones, not as burden, but as belonging. You are part of this now, in a quiet way. A witness to a space most never knew existed. Eventually, the air calls you forward again, not with urgency, but with the same gentle insistence the palace has offered all along. You rise, slowly, and pass through a smaller door tucked just behind the dais. It leads not to another chamber, but to a stairwell, narrow, curved, built entirely of pale limestone. With each step downward, the light fades and the sounds of wind and shifting sand grow distant, replaced by the steady drip of moisture in the dark. This is no ceremonial space. This is foundation. You descend into what must have once been the heart of the palace, the literal base on which everything above was built. The walls here are unfinished, rough, carved directly from bedrock. And yet, even in this utilitarian space, there's a sense of intention. The corridor bends and winds until you reach a small chamber, barely large enough to stand in. And at its center, embedded deep into the stone floor, is a single blackened torch stub surrounded by dozens of small clay figures. You kneel. Each figure is different. Some are animals, lions, deer, owls. Others are abstract symbols, spirals, crescents, even tiny replicas of stars. And a few are unmistakably people. One wears a crown, another carries a scroll, a third bears a sword and has been etched carefully with a curved nose and full lips. A stylized portrait, perhaps, of her. This was a ritual space, not grand, not for others, just for her. Azarmare, the woman who commanded armies and outwitted scholars, still came here to sit alone with clay figures and a single burning light. The symbolism is almost too much to bear. Historians haven't written of this place. No texts mention it, which means you're likely the first in centuries to see it. And yet, it feels as though she just stepped away for a moment, as though her warmth is still here, just out of reach. A bowl rests in the corner, half buried in dust. Inside, dried petals, long decayed but still fragrant in that oddly persistent way ancient things often are. Lavender, perhaps, or something sweeter. This was not a place of grief, but of grounding. A place where she returned not to mourn, but to remember. The floor beneath your knees is warm, strangely so, as if the earth itself remembers her too. And sitting here, in the humblest room of her hidden world, you realize the truest parts of her story weren't in the statues or mosaics or rumors. They were here, in small figures, in flickering flames, in silence. This is where she made peace with the weight she carried, where she didn't have to lead or listen, where no mask was needed, no armor polished, just herself in the dark, with clay and candlelight. You lower your head, not in reverence, but in thanks. Then, with a breath soft as silk, you stand. You don't disturb the figures. You don't relight the torch. You leave the room as she left it, quiet, steady, waiting for whoever might next need its silence. And as you make your way back up the stairs, each step lighter than the one before, you understand something deeper than history, something not written in scrolls or carved into stone. You understand that the strongest places in the world aren't the ones people remember. They're the ones that let you forget everything else, if only for a little while, if only long enough to rest. The stairwell exhales around you as you rise, carrying the faintest scent of stone dust and old petals. Upward you climb, slow and steady, as if your body already knows there's no rush now. No more battles to imagine, no more truths to uncover. Just the quiet journey back into the light. When you reach the top, the palace greets you like a soft breath, sunlight curling through open arches, birds nesting in broken alcoves, wind dancing gently along empty halls. There's no grand finale waiting, no hidden scroll or secret heirloom, just this soft exhale of a place that has told you everything it needed to. You return to the courtyard where you first began, or maybe where it always meant to end. The stone is warm underfoot now. The bench, somehow smoother than before. Time folds here, not in loops but in layers, like the folds of silk garments or the ripples of desert sand. You sit, and it begins to drift. Not the story. Your thoughts stretch thinner. Your breath becomes slower. Your mind folds inward. The palace seems to hum, its walls not singing, but settling. It's finished showing you who she was. Now it lets you just be. No more discovery, no more steps, Just this stillness, woven together from shadow, sunlight, and the memory of a woman who carved her life out of silence and sand. Around you, the breeze tugs softly at loose threads. The stones are warm. The sky is high. The weight behind your eyes grows heavier. And you let it. You let the story cradle you. Azamir's world was not made to impress. It was made to hold, and it holds you now. So slowly, gently, we come to the end. Mind down, final 300 words. Asterisk, asterisk. Let it all go now. Let the ruins fall away behind your closed eyes. Let the scent of sand and sun-warmed stone fade into the quiet hush of sleep. The wind, which once carried stories, now carries only stillness. The birds have grown silent. The moon, perhaps, rises once more somewhere above, though you don't need to look for it. You've walked through a palace built not for gold, not for glory, but for truth. You've felt stone that remembers, walls that whisper, and silence that holds more weight than 1,000 voices. You've followed the warrior princess not just through history, but into something gentler, something steadier. Now, there is nothing left to do, no more corridors to wander, no more secrets to find, no more words needed. You are welcome to stay as long as you like. The palace doesn't mind. It has waited before, it will wait again. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts quiet. Let your breath find that slow, steady rhythm of dreams. You have walked far, seen deeply, felt fully. You can rest now. The story will still be here when you wake, and until then, sweet dreams. Asterisk, asterisk. The journey is complete. There are no more corridors, no more steps to trace, no more fragments to brush free of sand. You are already there, still, warm, quiet. The palace fades gently behind your closed eyes now, not vanishing, but softening, dissolving like mist at dawn. The mosaics blur into your breath. The scent of jasmine drifts into memory. The voice of Azamir, which never truly spoke aloud, lingers somewhere near your heartbeat, steady, calm, enduring. She is not a statue. She is not a ghost. She is a rhythm. The rhythm of silence that does not demand but invites, the hush between breaths, the pause before dawn, the steadiness within. Let the sands fold over the palace again. Let the stars retreat beyond the clouds. Let the moon slip behind its veil. You've seen enough. You've felt everything you needed to feel. And now, you are weightless. Let sleep take you like water takes stone, gently, with patience over time. Let it round your edges, soften your questions, wrap around the last flickers of thought and carry them away, grain by grain, like desert wind reshaping ancient dunes. Nothing more is needed. No stories, no images, no words. Only rest, only peace. Only the warmth of a place that asked nothing of you and gave you everything. So now, finally, completely, let go. You are safe. You are still. You are home. Sweet dreams.